want to turn first to Gary Stevenson, former interest rate trader, now an inequality economist, and author of a new book called The Trading Game, Confessions of a City Banker. He also hosts Gary's Economics YouTube channel. Great to see you in person. We've spoken before on the phone quite a few times, but it's nice that you come into the studio. First of all, before we get into the world of trading, tell us a bit about the book. Why did you write it? What did you write it for?
The book is my personal story. It's how I went from being a very poor kid growing up on the streets of East London, kicking footballs around lampposts.
See, I see Essex, Ilford, but we'll have that debate.
Yeah, we can talk about that. It's contested territory. Getting expelled from school at 16 to being Citibank's most profitable trader in the world in less than 10 years by betting on the collapse of the living standards of ordinary British people. And why after that I decided to quit.
So it's a story about you, but then grows into a story about everyone.
Yeah, well, what you see is, I was a young kid, desperate to make cash, gunning into the game, You see, I was crazy in the early, I just wanted to beat everyone, make the money. I get onto the trading floor. I start realising after a couple of years, the way to make money is to bet on collapse. You bet on collapse 1 year, there's a great story now. I bet on collapse, and then 1 week later, a Japanese earthquake happened, and 20,000 people died, and I made $11 million.
Wow.
Yeah, it makes you think. I put in the book $550 a person. This is what these people do. And then after that, I made much, much more by betting on the collapse of living standards of ordinary people. And that sounds terrible, but that was my job, mate. Mm-hmm. That was my job, And then after that, it kind of grows into what that did to me as a person.
I can see what that might do to someone as a person if they feel like they are betting against people having a good future, or indeed any future. But were you able to divorce yourself from the bad things that were happening to people and you making money from it?
I tried. I tell you, listen, I don't come from a political background, and I didn't grow up thinking it's your job to protect society, to protect poor people. I come from get rich or die trying, really. That's what it's like around where I grew up. And you do it once, you make a ton of money. You do it twice, you make a ton of money. But
did you feel good when you made that money? Did you look at your paycheck at the end of the month and think,
there's some great scenes there. It's bonuses. It's not the end of the month. And there's a great scene there about my first bonus. I don't know if you got up to that bit yet, but it was about 4 times what I was expecting. And to be honest, my reaction, I think, was shock. And I worked with this great guy, when the book is called Billy, who was a Scouser, never went to university. I remember getting the bonus. My next memory was I was sitting on the trading floor desk with this guy, Billy, this little grey-haired Scouser, and I felt like I was going to start crying. And I know it sounds ridiculous. Now you're going to be like, how could you make that much money? But, mate, my dad worked hard for 20 grand a year. And he used to get the train into central London at 5 a.m. And my mum used to wake me up and we used to wave at him on the train. And he used to come back late, tired, 20 grand a year. And I was 20, I just turned 23, and I got paid 400 grand for moving numbers around on the screen. And it makes you think, mate.
But so you felt at the time, and certainly now, that there is something deeply immoral about that your dad gets up, and lots of people listening get up and work damn hard every day for not even a percentage point of what you can earn sitting at a desk being good at maths.
So I ain't Mother Teresa. I'm a trader, mate. I'm not a moral philosopher. Last time I spoke to you was late 2020. Do you remember what we said? Do you remember what I said?
No.
I said that when we come out of COVID, we will have a massive cost of living crisis, inflation crisis, house prices, stock prices, gold price will go through the roof because of a massive increase in inequality. Listen, I'm not here because I want society to be perfectly equal. I'm here because for the last nearly 15 years now, I've made a ton of money betting that ordinary British families will fall into poverty. And I don't want to have to make that bet anymore, but it's still happening.
Do you think that that's the way the system is, or society is fundamentally weighted? It is fundamentally weighted towards keeping certain people down and poor for longer so that more wealth can be accrued by those who are betting on it?
There's another great scene in the book, right, where I speak to this guy, Billy, about how do I understand the economy? And he says, what you need to do is go out and ask ordinary people. And I went out and asked ordinary people, and you do the same thing now. Why don't you spend more money?
It's not numbers on a spreadsheet, it's bricks and mortar, it's the pound in people's pocket.
For me, and the millionaires who surrounded me, it was numbers on a spreadsheet. But listen, we live in a country now where realistically half the country struggles to simultaneously feed their kids and turn the heating on. Mm-hmm. And that is in the same country. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen the largest and fastest ever increase in wealth. Stock prices all over the world going to record all-time highs, record numbers of billionaires. It's not rocket science what's happening here. Ordinary families are losing their wealth, the wealthy are getting richer.
But aren't you a living example of the opposite? That you can go and do this. You, as you say, you came from very, very little. You didn't have much growing up. It was get rich or die trying, and you did.
Listen, I don't want to make this the Gary Stevenson show, okay? I've won every math competition I ever entered, and I don't know why, okay? Ever since I was a kid, you know, I didn't have no desk at home to do my schoolwork on. I did my work on the floor, and I was first in every exam, okay? Not every kid from where I'm from can do that, okay? I went to my friend's 50th birthday party the other day, and his nephew said to me, Gary, how do I make money? He watches the channel. This kid don't come from a rich family, all right? I worked on a trading floor. It's in East London, okay? Somebody asked me once, where's your accent from? It's interesting. Ordinary people don't get those jobs. They don't make no money. There's no way out, mate. We need to change the system.
Well, if everybody thought like you did, no one would be a nurse, no one would be a teacher. And we've got to have people that are nurses, and we've got to have people who are teachers.
Yeah, and they should be able to afford to pay the bills, mate.
Yeah. So what do you think needs to happen?
You need to look at distribution explicitly. I think at the beginning of COVID, the reason why I told you what I told you is because I knew that the government was going to give an enormous amount of money out. The total government deficit since the beginning of COVID is £800 billion. That's £16,000 for every UK adult. That means if you don't have £16,000 cash more now than you had 4 or 5 years ago, someone else has got your £16,000. We should have been asking who's going to get it, because we knew we were going to change the distribution. You know, we need to look at distribution. In COVID, we knew at the beginning the rich were going to get much richer. Now, at the time, we were saying we're going to have a roaring 20s. If I said to you now, Tom, imagine we're going to pause the economy for 2 years, and in that time, we're going to enormously increase inequality. What do you think will happen to living standards when we unpause it? It should have been obvious. We need to look at inequality, and we need to look at the tax rates paid by ordinary working families versus the rich.
And that's what I was going to come to, is when it comes to what Jeremy Hunt was talking about today, and actually the arguments that they have moved towards Labour on, particularly this non-dom tax status, the idea of taxing wealth a hell of a lot more has got to happen as opposed to income, surely.
If we don't want to see living standards collapse, it has to happen. But look, can I tell you a quick story about my first ever bonus as a trader? My first ever budget as a trader. It was 2009, so it was Alistair Darling, and I was sleeping on a broken mattress. I was a trader, but I'd only been there 6 months. And Alistair Darling and Gordon Brown were going to tax the bankers. I was petrified, mate. I had nothing. I'd worked, very hard to get this job, and now he's going to tax the bankers. I didn't know what to... And I turned around, the traders around me, they were laughing. And I was like, why are you laughing? This is my future. You're laughing now, right? One of them comes up to me, grabs me by the shoulders, shakes me. Don't worry, Gary. Don't ever tax us. Listen, every budget day, I get very frustrated because people like yourselves, you fine gentlemen who know your craft, you come in, this tax is up a little bit, we're giving you back a little bit what we took from you last year. At the same time, wealth of the middle classes collapses every year. Wealth of the rich explodes every year. Living standards collapse every year. And I think we're at risk here of not seeing the wood for the trees. You need to look at the distribution rather than just the numbers. You cannot be, really, for me, the big story of the book is what happens to an individual, me, and to a society when you can convince them to focus only on the numbers and not the bigger picture. And what you were seeing for me, it basically gave me a breakdown. And for society, it's causing millions of ordinary families, hard-working families, teachers, nurses, like you say, not to be able to pay the bills, while the rich see the biggest ever capital gains they've ever had in history.
The book is called The Trading Game, Confessions of a City Banker. You can also find Gary on YouTube at Gary's Economics. It's really good to see you in person.
It's nice to meet you, Lars. It's nice to meet you.
Thanks very much indeed for coming in. 034